The title of this story is, My Fiancée Dumped Me After Her Sister Convinced Her I Was Beneath Her, but later she came back regretting everything and showed up at my front door begging for another chance. Hey guys, before we get into today's story, I want to ask you for a quick favor. The channel's been losing a little momentum lately, and honestly, subscribing is one of the biggest ways you can help support us. It only takes a second, it costs absolutely nothing, and it really helps us keep making more content like this. Seriously, your support means a lot to us, and we appreciate every single one of you. Let's keep growing this channel together. Alright, thank you so much. Now let's get into the story. I'm using a throwaway account because a few people I know follow my main account, and this whole mess is still pretty recent. Also, I'm typing this out on my phone at like 4 in the morning because I haven't been able to sleep at all, so excuse me if the formatting sucks. I should probably start with a little background about myself since it matters a lot to understanding how this entire train wreck happened. I'm a 31-year-old guy from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I grew up in a pretty normal middle-class household. My dad owned a small plumbing company that he built completely from the ground up. I mean literally from nothing, just him, an old van, and a ton of hard work. Over the years, he turned it into a successful business with around 18 employees. My mom was an elementary school teacher, and honestly, everybody in our neighborhood loved her. She was one of those people who remembered every kid's name and somehow made everyone feel important. My parents were never wealthy, but they taught me something way more valuable. They always said that if you worked hard, stayed honest, and handled your money smartly, you could build a solid life for yourself. Maybe that's part of the reason I ended up becoming a financial advisor. Yeah, I know. Not exactly the sexiest career in the world. Whenever I tell people at parties what I do for a living, I can practically see their eyes glaze over immediately. It's like mentioning taxes at a birthday party. But honestly, I genuinely love what I do. There's something incredibly rewarding about helping normal people get their finances together and make plans for a better future. Watching someone finally feel secure about their life after being stressed about money for years feels amazing. And to be fair, the paycheck isn't bad either, especially after I became a partner at my firm last year. Anyway, back in the spring of 2019, my friend Derek threw this huge barbecue at his new place. You know the kind of party I'm talking about. Grills smoking all day long, coolers packed with craft beer because apparently that's what adults are supposed to drink now, and eventually somebody pulls out a guitar even though nobody actually asked them to. I almost skipped it because I still had a pile of client reports I needed to finish, but Derek basically threatened to come drag me there himself if I tried backing out. And thank God he did, because that's where I met Lauren. Seriously, guys, have you ever looked across a crowded room and instantly felt like everything around you disappeared? That's exactly what happened when I saw her standing near the fire pit laughing at something. She was this stunning redhead with unbelievable green eyes, wearing a simple sundress, yet somehow she completely stood out from everybody else there without even trying. I later found out she worked in marketing for a tech startup downtown. She was insanely smart, could hold a conversation about literally anything, and she had this oddly adorable obsession with true crime podcasts that I somehow found really charming. We ended up talking until almost 4 in the morning that night. Everybody else had either gone home or passed out drunk somewhere, and we were still sitting on Derek's back porch talking nonstop. After that, things moved pretty quickly between us. About a year later, we moved in together because we were already spending every single night at each other's apartments anyway, so financially it just made more sense. I guess once you become a financial advisor, your brain never really shuts off. LMAO. Last summer, I proposed to her during a trip to Traverse City. I went full romantic movie mode with the beach sunset setup and everything. She cried. I cried. Random strangers on the beach actually started cheering for us. It honestly felt perfect. Our life together was everything I'd ever hoped for. We had this really comfortable routine that just worked. I'd wake up early every morning and make breakfast for us. During COVID, I taught myself how to make this ridiculously good French toast that Lauren swore tasted better than her mom's recipe. And honestly, her mom agreed, which felt like winning an Olympic medal. We'd sit together drinking coffee before work, talking about our plans for the day, and then we'd head out. At night, we'd cook dinner together while dancing around the kitchen listening to 90s music. Lauren got me completely hooked on Matchbox 20. Or we'd spend hours binge-watching whatever new show we were obsessed with at the time. The weekends were probably my favorite part, though. Sometimes we'd take random mini road trips to tiny towns around Michigan just to try local restaurants or check out weird roadside attractions. Once, we found this incredible little pie shop in the middle of nowhere, and after that we'd literally drive an hour just to go there again. Other weekends we'd stay home, work in the garden together, or invite friends over for game nights. I got weirdly into growing vegetables during COVID, which is something I never thought I'd say about myself. Honestly, we were one of those couples people secretly envied. You know exactly the type I mean. The couples who genuinely enjoy spending time together instead of just pretending to online for Instagram pictures. Of course we argued sometimes, but it was always over dumb stuff. Like whose turn it was to clean the bathroom or whether pineapple belongs on pizza. And yes, pineapple absolutely belongs on pizza. Fight me. We also had all these plans for the future. We'd already started looking at wedding venues. We were checking out houses in this really cute neighborhood near my office, and we'd even talked about baby names, although we agreed we wanted to wait a few years before having kids. Lauren even had an entire Pinterest board dedicated to ideas for our dream house. She wanted one of those huge fancy kitchen islands and a cozy little reading nook next to a bay window. And I was working my ass off trying to save enough money to make all of it happen for her. Looking back now, maybe things felt a little too perfect. You know that saying about how if something feels too good to be true, it probably is? Yeah, turns out that applies to relationships too. Because right when I thought my life was finally coming together, right when everything seemed stable and happy, Lauren's sister Vanessa decided to surprise us with a visit. And trust me, before I explain the absolute disaster Vanessa caused, you need to understand exactly what kind of person she is. You know those people who turn being an influencer into their entire identity? That was Vanessa. Actually, scratch that. Imagine that personality type multiplied by 1,000 and mixed with a massive superiority complex. While Lauren and I were building a quiet life together in Michigan, living in our cozy apartment with our rescue cat Oliver. Yeah, I know it's a basic cat name, but he already had it when we adopted him. Vanessa was down in Miami, supposedly living her best life. And by best life, I mean posting nonstop Instagram stories about her entrepreneur hustle while secretly living off her parents' money. And look, no judgment toward people who get help from family. A lot of people do, but at least be honest about it. Vanessa was 34 years old, but acted like she was permanently stuck at 21. Her Instagram bio literally said, CEO of Living Life, complete with sparkle emojis. She sold these insanely overpriced workout plans online too. Like, she charged $349 for a basic PDF full of exercises you could literally find on YouTube for free. But somehow she had around 70,000 followers who treated every word she said like gospel. Her content was non-stop, boss babe, nonsense, and fake motivational garbage about creating your own reality. It was basically toxic positivity wrapped in filters and Facetune. The thing that bothered me the most was how different Lauren acted whenever Vanessa came around. Normally, Lauren was grounded, funny, and completely genuine. She could hold real conversations about meaningful things. She volunteered at the local animal shelter on weekends, knew every neighbor in our building by name, and whenever our elderly neighbor Mrs. Carter got sick, Lauren would bring her homemade soup. She really was a genuinely kind person. But every time Vanessa visited, it was like somebody flipped a switch inside Lauren's brain. Suddenly she'd start talking differently, using all these weird influencer phrases like manifest your dreams and align with your truth. She'd become super insecure about everything too, our apartment, her career, even the clothes she wore. One time she actually cried because we didn't have one of those stupid neon, good vibes only signs hanging in our living room. At first, I tried really hard to be understanding. I mean, I understood that sibling relationships can get complicated sometimes. Lauren was the youngest out of the 4 kids in her family. Their brother Nathan was actually a really solid guy. He taught high school in Chicago and was probably the most normal one out of all of them. But Vanessa? Vanessa had always been the exciting sister. Back when Lauren was busy getting straight A's in school, Vanessa was sneaking out to parties every weekend. While Lauren worked her way up the ladder in her marketing career, Vanessa was supposedly finding herself in places like Bali, which basically meant posting bikini pictures online with fake inspirational quotes underneath them. The real issues started around 8 months before everything completely exploded. Vanessa had just broken up with her newest boyfriend, some crypto dude named Brandon. And no, I'm not joking, that was actually his name. After the breakup, she apparently decided it was her mission to educate Lauren about life. She started sending these ridiculously long text messages about how marriage was just some social construct meant to suppress women, and how settling down in your 30s was basically equivalent to giving up on your dreams. At first, Lauren thought it was hilarious. She'd show me the messages, and we'd sit there laughing together about how insane Vanessa sounded. But after a while, Vanessa got way more intense about it. She began sending Lauren articles about divorce statistics for young couples, or tagging her in Instagram posts about living authentically and never settling. It wasn't one huge dramatic thing all at once. It was more like a constant drip of negativity slowly wearing her down over time. I remember one night really clearly, about 2 months before the breakup happened. Vanessa had randomly shown up in Michigan again claiming she was in the area, which made absolutely no sense considering she lived in Miami. We all went out to dinner together, and the entire time Vanessa talked nonstop about her glamorous life. The parties, the men, the networking events, which honestly just sounded like fancier parties. Then out of nowhere, she looked at Lauren with this fake sympathetic expression and said, "Don't you miss adventure, sis? Don't you want more than this?" And when she said this, she gestured around at our apartment, the home Lauren and I had built together. I swear my blood pressure instantly shot through the roof. But Lauren didn't say anything. She just sat there quietly moving food around on her plate like someone had shattered her entire worldview. Looking back now, I should have spoken up right there. I should have called Vanessa out for being manipulative and toxic. But I didn't want to start a huge fight or make Lauren uncomfortable in the middle of dinner. And honestly, I never thought Lauren would actually fall for Vanessa's whole fake influencer lifestyle. Lauren had always been the practical, grounded one. Hell, literally the weekend before that dinner, we'd been planning wedding flowers together and joking about how neither of us wanted one of those over-the-top Instagram weddings. God, I was so unbelievably naive. The worst thing is that when I look back now, all the warning signs were there. I just ignored them because I didn't want to believe what was happening. Lauren started spending way more time scrolling through Instagram. After phone calls with Vanessa, she'd go completely quiet for hours. Then suddenly she got obsessed with meditation apps, manifestation journals, and all this self-help influencer nonsense. Honestly, it felt like watching somebody slowly get brainwashed into joining a cult. Except in this case, the cult leader was her own sister. Even now, months later, this next part is hard for me to write about. But if I'm telling this story, I should tell the whole truth. So here it goes. It happened on a Tuesday in April. Michigan was finally starting to warm up again after winter, and I remember feeling weirdly happy that morning because I only needed a light jacket for work. The night before, Lauren and I had stayed up late planning our honeymoon. We were talking about taking a road trip through the Pacific Northwest and stopping at all these tiny towns and national parks along the way. Lauren was especially excited about finding weird roadside attractions like the world's largest ball of twine or some random nonsense like that. Just goofy couple stuff. Normal stuff. That morning started so painfully ordinary that thinking about it now honestly hurts. I woke up around 6:30 like I always did, let Oliver out of the bedroom. He had this habit of sleeping curled up near our feet every night, and started making breakfast. It was French toast morning, Lauren's favorite. Over the years, I'd completely perfected my recipe. Thick slices of brioche bread, extra cinnamon, a little vanilla, and this incredible maple syrup we bought from a tiny farm in Vermont during one of our road trips. Lauren came downstairs wearing the blue sweater I bought her for Christmas. She seemed normal enough. Maybe a little tired, but it was a Tuesday morning. Everybody's tired on Tuesday mornings. We ate breakfast together and talked about the show we'd started watching the night before. Then she kissed me goodbye, told me she loved me, and left for work. And I remember sitting there afterward thinking about how lucky I was. How perfect my life felt. It's funny how life waits until you feel completely safe before it knocks the wind out of you. The rest of my workday was completely normal. I had a few client meetings, grabbed lunch with a coworker, and sent Lauren a couple memes during the day that reminded me of her. She left me on read, but honestly, I didn't think much of it at the time. Around 4 in the afternoon, she texted saying she was leaving work early because she wasn't feeling well. I offered to grab soup from her favorite Vietnamese place on the way home, but she just texted back, "No thanks." That should have been my first clue something was wrong. Lauren never says no to pho when she's sick. When I got home around 6, the apartment immediately felt off. You know that weird feeling when you walk into a room and instantly sense that something terrible is about to happen? Like the air itself feels heavier somehow? That's exactly what it felt like. Lauren was sitting on the couch, already halfway through a bottle of wine. And Lauren never drank during the day unless something was seriously wrong. There was this empty, distant look in her eyes I'd never seen before. She wouldn't even look directly at me. Even Oliver, who normally sprinted to the door every time I got home, was nowhere in sight. Then she said the 4 words nobody ever wants to hear in a relationship. "We need to talk." The second those words left her mouth, my stomach dropped. Nobody in human history has ever followed "we need to talk" with anything good. I sat down across from her, still wearing my work clothes, still holding my laptop bag like somehow it could protect me from what was coming. "What's going on?" I asked. But deep down, part of me already knew. The warning signs had been there for months. I just refused to see them. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said before taking another long drink of wine. "About my life. About what I really want. About everything." As she talked, she kept making these weird hand gestures she'd clearly picked up from Vanessa, and then she finally said it. "I don't think I can do this anymore." "Do what?" I asked like a complete idiot, even though I already understood exactly what she meant. This, she replied. Us. The wedding. All of it. She motioned around the apartment at all the little pieces of our life together. The dumb ceramic penguin we found at a thrift store one weekend. The framed photos from our trips. The wedding planning binder sitting on the coffee table. Then she looked at me and quietly said, I feel like I'm suffocating. And honestly, that part alone almost killed me. But what came next hurt even worse. She started talking about how much she'd been speaking to Vanessa lately and how Vanessa had opened her eyes to everything she was supposedly missing out on. She said she needed to find herself before she could settle down. Listening to her felt surreal. It was like hearing somebody recite every generic breakup cliché imaginable, except all mixed together with Vanessa's fake influencer buzzwords. She kept saying things like living authentically and aligning with my truth. At one point she actually said, I need to figure out who Lauren is before I can be Lauren plus someone else. And all I wanted to do was scream. I wanted to tell her that she already knew exactly who she was. She was the woman who loved true crime podcasts, hated cilantro with a passion, and cried during dog food commercials. That was Lauren. But I didn't say any of it. I just sat there silently while 5 years of my life completely collapsed in front of me. And Lauren kept talking about personal growth and spiritual journeys like she was reading directly from one of Vanessa's Instagram captions. But the absolute worst part? She had already packed a suitcase. While I was sitting at work worrying about bringing soup home for my sick fiancé, she had been packing up her life behind my back. She told me she was going to stay with Vanessa for a while until she could figure things out. Then, before leaving, she took off her engagement ring, the same ring that had belonged to my grandmother, and placed it on the coffee table like it meant absolutely nothing. She dropped that ring onto the coffee table like it was some cheap accessory she didn't care about anymore. After she walked out, I just sat there for hours staring at it. Eventually, Oliver crawled out from wherever he'd been hiding and curled up on my lap, purring nonstop like he somehow understood I was falling apart. The dirty French toast plates from breakfast were still sitting in the sink. Her coffee mug, the one with the little foxes on it that I bought her during our first Christmas together, was still sitting inside the dishwasher. You want to know the most messed up part? That same night, while I was sitting alone trying to understand how my entire future had collapsed in a single day, Lauren was already posting on Instagram. Nothing obvious. Just one of those vague, inspirational posts about choosing yourself and embracing new chapters. Of course, she slapped a dramatic sunset filter on it too. Real classy. After she left, I basically speed ran every stage of grief in under 2 days. At first, I was in complete denial. I sat on that couch until almost 4 in the morning genuinely believing she'd come back through the door crying and telling me she'd made a mistake. Then the anger hit. And yeah, I may or may not have thrown her stupid good vibes only mug against the wall. Honestly, no regrets. After that came the depression. I called out of work for 2 straight days and basically became one with the couch while surviving on leftover Chinese food and hanging out with Oliver. But then something weird happened. You know how Netflix eventually pops up asking, are you still watching? After you've been binge watching for way too long? Well, after clicking yes for probably the 100th time, I noticed something strange. Lauren was still logged into our shared Netflix account. And under the continue watching section was some random show I'd never even heard of that had apparently been watched at like 2 in the morning from some other guy's place. Yeah, take a second to let that one sink in. Less than a week earlier, my fiancée had been planning our wedding and honeymoon with me. Now she was already Netflix and chilling with another dude. And because I apparently enjoy emotional self-destruction, and maybe because I'd had a few beers at that point, I decided to start digging. Naturally, the first stop was Instagram. Lauren's main account looked exactly how you'd expect after a breakup. A bunch of inspirational quotes about healing, self-discovery, and new beginnings. Pictures of her and Vanessa partying in Miami clubs. Basically the standard, look how free and happy I am now, social media performance. But then I remembered something important. Lauren had always been weird about creating separate Instagram accounts for random hobbies. She had one account just for books she read, another one for recipes and cooking experiments. So I decided to follow a hunch. You know how Instagram suggests related accounts when someone uses the same email for multiple profiles? Yeah, I started trying different versions of her usernames, and after maybe 10 minutes, holy shit, I found it. A completely secret Instagram account. And honestly, discovering that account made me realize our relationship had probably been dead for months before she actually left. The account was private, but Lauren had used the exact same password she used for literally everything else. Her mom's name plus her birth year. I'd warned her about using weak passwords 1,000 times. What I found inside that account felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. Except the car was my entire relationship, and apparently it had already been burning for months while I stood there clueless. The messages went all the way back to January. There were endless DMs between Lauren and Vanessa planning this whole escape from suburban life thing like they were plotting a prison break. Vanessa kept sending these dramatic messages about how proud she was that Lauren was finally waking up and choosing freedom. Then I found screenshots of conversations with some guy named Mason. Apparently, Vanessa introduced him to Lauren at a party back in February while Lauren was supposedly visiting her parents. Reading those messages honestly made me feel physically sick. There wasn't outright cheating, at least not technically, but there were tons of flirty conversations and emotional cheating type stuff. What if we'd met first? What if you weren't engaged? That kind of crap. Meanwhile, I was back home planting tomatoes in our garden and planning surprise date nights like a complete idiot. But honestly, that wasn't even the worst part. All those nights during the months before she left when Lauren claimed she was working late or out having girls' nights with coworkers. Yeah, turns out she'd actually been on video calls with Vanessa and all her Miami influencer friends planning out her brand new glamorous life. They even had a group chat called Lauren's Liberation. And inside that chat, they constantly made fun of me and joked about how boring our life together was. You want to know how deep this whole thing went? They made a spreadsheet. An actual spreadsheet. Like some corporate project plan for destroying our relationship. There were separate tabs for everything. Clubs they wanted to visit. Rich guys Lauren should meet. And yes, Mason definitely wasn't the only one. There was even something labeled Glow Up Schedule that included appointments for hair extensions, nails, and something called tooth gems. I literally had to Google what that was. Apparently, it's jewelry glued onto your teeth because apparently human civilization has peaked. But one conversation from March hit me harder than everything else. Lauren had posted a picture of us from my nephew's birthday party. My little nephew had started throwing cake at everybody because he thought it was hilarious, and Lauren and I ended up completely covered in frosting. In the photo, we looked genuinely happy. We were laughing, smiling, just enjoying life together. Underneath that picture, Vanessa had commented in their private group chat, "Ugh, you look so basic here. Can't wait until you're finally living your best life with us instead of playing house in the suburbs." And Lauren's response? "Just a few more months of pretending." That sentence absolutely destroyed me. A few more months of pretending. Those words just kept replaying in my head over and over again. While I was planning our future together, she was secretly planning her exit. While I was looking at houses in good school districts because she always talked about wanting kids someday, she was shopping for party outfits and flirting with other men. And the sickest part of all, around the exact same time she was messaging Mason about being confused in our relationship, there were photos of her trying on wedding dresses with her mom. Photos of her crying happy tears in this beautiful white dress. Photos captioned, "Can't wait to marry my best friend." Meanwhile, later that same day, she'd be in Mason's DMs talking about how trapped she felt with me. After finding all of that, I started obsessively looking through old pictures of us trying to figure out when everything changed. Was she already pretending in that New Year's photo where she looked at me like I was her whole world? What about our anniversary dinner in March? Or that lake trip we took in April? At what point did my fiancée become such an incredible actress? The more I uncovered, the more it felt like I was reading about a stranger instead of the woman I loved. This wasn't the Lauren I knew. The Lauren I knew cried during ASPCA commercials and once spent 4 hours making a handmade get-well card for our elderly neighbor. The person I was seeing now felt like some weird Vanessa-created version of Lauren. A pod person obsessed with energy, vibes, and treating our relationship like it was just a temporary stop before she upgraded to a cooler life. For about 4 months after the breakup, I had a front row seat to their entire Miami adventure through social media. And honestly, it felt like watching some horrible reality show I couldn't turn off. Lauren and Vanessa posted nonstop pictures of designer outfits, rooftop parties, expensive restaurants, and beach clubs. Every single caption had some obnoxious hashtag like hashtag living authentically or hashtag choosing me. My personal favorite was hashtag no regrets. Yeah, sure. Mason started showing up constantly too, even though they were obviously trying to hide it. You know exactly the kind of posts I mean. Accidental group photos where he just happened to be standing right next to Lauren. Stories where you could hear his voice conveniently in the background. They thought they were being subtle, but honestly, it was about as subtle as a drunk elephant smashing through a china store. And little by little, Lauren completely transformed into Vanessa 2.0. The girl who used to spend Sundays in pajamas reading true crime books disappeared completely. Now she wore crop tops, hair extensions, and posted daily affirmations online while trying to launch her own wellness coaching business, which, translated into normal English, meant selling the exact same overpriced workout PDFs as Vanessa. She even started talking with that weird influencer vocal fry Vanessa uses. Watching it all happen honestly felt like seeing somebody have a live-streamed quarter-life crisis. But then, around 4 months into their amazing glamorous new lifestyle, something incredible happened. One morning I was scrolling through Instagram while drinking coffee and mentally preparing myself for another day of pretending I was fine. And then I saw it. A brand new post from Vanessa that changed absolutely everything. There she was on some beach in Malibu. And trust me, the fact that it was Malibu instead of Miami actually matters later, standing in a white bikini with her left hand stretched toward the camera, showing off this gigantic engagement ring. The caption said something like, "He asked, and my soul said yes. Ready to spend forever with my twin flame." Now at first glance you're probably thinking, okay, Vanessa got engaged. Big deal. But here's where the story gets absolutely hilarious. The guy, whose online handle was literally TechBroAustin, was some startup founder from Seattle that Vanessa had apparently been secretly dating for the last 6 months. And the best part? They were immediately moving to Seattle together. Yep, the exact same woman who spent months preaching to Lauren about how marriage was a social construct and how settling down ruined women's freedom had secretly been planning her own engagement the entire time. You seriously couldn't invent this level of hypocrisy if you tried. And Lauren? She found out the exact same way the rest of the internet did. Through Instagram. According to Derek, who still talks to Lauren's brother Nathan, Lauren completely lost it after seeing the post. Apparently, she called Vanessa screaming about betrayal and hypocrisy. But Vanessa just threw all the same fake spiritual influencer nonsense right back at her. Stuff like, "I'm following my truth, and the universe has a plan." Honestly, it was almost poetic. But somehow it gets even better. Remember Mason? Mr. Exciting Miami finance bro who was supposedly so much better than me? Yeah, turns out Mason had been following his truth. With like 4 other women at the same time, he was messing around with Lauren. One of the girls discovered the others and made this massive TikTok exposing him with screenshots, receipts, and everything else. The whole thing ended up going semi-viral in their little Miami social scene. Lauren tried really hard to act unbothered online. She posted all this fake Zen nonsense like, "Everything happens for a reason, and trust the journey." But according to the people who knew her, behind the scenes, she was absolutely falling apart. And without Vanessa, they're funding their glamorous lifestyle. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Vanessa had been paying for most of the partying the whole time. Lauren suddenly realized real life costs money. Turns out those overpriced wellness coaching programs weren't exactly flying off the shelves. After Vanessa announced she was moving to Seattle and selling the Miami apartment, Lauren had to move out too. And suddenly she couldn't afford the lifestyle she'd spent months pretending was natural for her. She was basically stuck in Miami with no real support system. Because once the free drinks, parties, and expensive dinners disappeared, all those friends vanished too. Funny how fast party friendships die when the credit card stops working. But the absolute cherry on top happened one night after Lauren had apparently been drinking. She posted this long, emotional Instagram story ranting about fake people, betrayal, and how real sisters don't abandon each other. And yes, she tagged Vanessa directly in it. Vanessa's response? She blocked Lauren. On literally everything. Instagram, texts, calls, everything. And just like that, the entire fantasy they built came crashing down. All those motivational quotes about living authentically and choosing yourself slowly disappeared from Lauren's page. Instead, her account turned into vague sad girl posts about healing, growth, and learning difficult lessons. And honestly, I watched the entire disaster unfold from the comfort of my couch with Oliver sitting on my lap most nights. Was it petty that part of me enjoyed watching karma work in real time? Probably. But after the way they treated me, it felt pretty satisfying seeing reality finally catch up to them. Meanwhile, I'd slowly started rebuilding my own life. I got back into going to the gym again. Turns out heartbreak and anger make incredible pre-workout supplements. I started revisiting old hobbies too. I finally finished restoring this vintage record player I'd been working on forever. And little by little, I started remembering how to enjoy my own company again. Oliver and I developed this peaceful little routine together. Morning coffee out on the balcony, work during the day, then evenings filled with books, video games, or just relaxing quietly at home. By Instagram standards, it probably looked boring as hell. But honestly, it felt peaceful. And that's around the time I met Claire. And no, it wasn't some cheesy romantic comedy moment where we spotted each other across a crowded coffee shop. It happened at the most painfully boring place imaginable, a tax law conference in Chicago. I was there representing my firm and trying not to die of boredom during a presentation about retirement account regulations when somebody asked this incredibly smart question about Roth IRA conversions. I turned around to see who asked it, and there she was. Claire. She was wearing this perfectly fitted navy blue suit with these stylish glasses and a subtle undercut hairstyle that somehow made her look both incredibly professional and unbelievably cool at the same time. During the break, I forced myself to go talk to her about the question she asked. And yes, I fully understand how pathetic it sounds that I use tax law as a pickup line. Please don't judge me. But Claire turned out to be amazing. She was this brilliant tax attorney who could talk about fiscal policy with the same excitement normal people reserve for sports or TV shows. But what really got me was that she was genuinely funny. Not fake social media caption funny. Actually funny. She had this dry, sarcastic sense of humor that somehow made even tax regulations entertaining. We ended up skipping the rest of the afternoon conference sessions and spent hours talking at this tiny cafe near the convention center. We talked about everything. Taxes, politics, true crime podcasts. Turns out we were obsessed with all the same ones. And being around her just felt easy. There was no pretending, no performance, no trying to curate some perfect image. It was just two people genuinely enjoying each other's company. After I went back to Michigan, we started texting constantly, then FaceTiming, then eventually taking turns driving the 4 hours between our cities every other weekend. Claire was completely different from anyone I'd dated before. She was ambitious, absolutely, but not in that fake girl boss, influencer way Vanessa loved. Claire worked hard because she genuinely loved her career, not because she needed validation from strangers online. The first time she visited my apartment, she brought her own coffee beans with her. Apparently, she's a massive coffee snob. She spent the entire morning teaching me this ridiculously complicated pour-over coffee method she swore made all the difference. We completely destroyed my kitchen in the process, but honestly, it was the most fun I'd had in months. And the thing that stood out most? She never once asked why I still had a cat tree in my living room, but no wedding pictures hanging on the walls anymore. She didn't push, didn't pry. She just helped me clean up the spilled coffee grounds and suggested we make French toast next. Apparently, she's also weirdly passionate about breakfast foods and insisted orange zest would change my life. So by the time Lauren showed up at my apartment one rainy night in October, I honestly wasn't even angry anymore. Mostly just exhausted. She looked exactly like somebody whose dream life had completely fallen apart. Mascara smeared under her eyes. Hair messy. Holding onto her phone like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "Can we talk?" she asked in this shaky little voice. Classic Lauren timing. She'd probably seen the Instagram photo Claire posted of us at my cousin's wedding and suddenly realized she wanted closure. I let her inside because despite everything, I'm not a total asshole. Oliver took one look at her and immediately disappeared into the bedroom. Honestly, cats have incredible instincts. She sat down on the new couch I'd bought after she left, because I couldn't stand looking at the old one anymore, and immediately started crying. And the conversation that followed was exactly as predictable as you'd imagine. She told me she'd made a terrible mistake. That Vanessa manipulated her. That Mason turned out to be a selfish player. Huge shock there. She talked about how much she missed our life together. How she'd been thinking nonstop about everything she threw away. The old version of me probably would have eaten every word of it up. I probably would have convinced myself it was fate giving us another chance. But while she was talking, all I could think about was the previous weekend Claire and I spent building this ridiculously huge blanket fort in my living room because it was raining outside and we got bored. I thought about the two of us laying there talking for hours about real things. Career goals, life plans, family, not curated Instagram moments, not fake inspirational nonsense, just real life. Finally, Lauren looked at me with those green eyes that used to completely wreck me and quietly said, "I think we could try again. I'm different now," she whispered. "I finally know what I want." That's when I stood up, walked over to the kitchen counter where my phone was charging, and pulled up a picture from my cousin's wedding. It was this candid photo somebody snapped of Claire and me laughing at something my drunk uncle had said. Claire had her head thrown back laughing, one hand resting against my chest, and I was looking at her like she was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. Because honestly, that's exactly how I felt. I handed the phone to Lauren. Then I quietly said, "I'm different now too, and I know what I want." The expression on Lauren's face in that moment honestly hit me harder than I expected. It looked like she'd finally realized some mistakes can't be undone with tears and a carefully rehearsed apology. She started crying again, but for the first time, I didn't feel responsible for comforting her. "You should probably go," I told her gently. "It's getting late, and Claire's coming over tomorrow morning. She's teaching me how to make croissants from scratch." As Lauren reached the front door, she stopped and turned back toward me. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly, like she genuinely couldn't understand how happiness was possible without her. And honestly, I thought about it for a second. I thought about Claire. About our ridiculous coffee experiments and homemade blanket forts. About the terrible puns she sends me randomly in the middle of workdays. about how she actually listens when I ramble about finance regulations like a giant nerd. Then I smiled. Yeah, I told her honestly. I really am. After Lauren finally left, I texted Claire. You are not gonna believe who just showed up at my apartment. Her response came back almost immediately. Do we need emergency stress croissants tonight instead of tomorrow morning? I can be there in 4 hours with backup butter. And right there, staring down at my phone while laughing like an idiot in my kitchen, I finally understood something. Sometimes the worst heartbreaks in your life end up leading you directly toward the best things that will ever happen to you.